Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. Today, I am sitting down with a seasoned leader, John D Marvin, the CEO and president of Texas State Optical. With experience in hiring, scaling, and leading through major industry shifts, he's here to share hard-earned insights that every practice owner, especially those in growth mode, need to hear. From leadership to AI, from mindset to building high-performing teams, this episode is all about how to think like a CEO. So let's take a look. This episode was brought to you by Gray Finch. Hey docs, if you want to have a great business, the right practice management software is essential. But some can be slow, outdated, and lacking good support. That's why I recommend Gray Finch to all orthodontists. It's the fastest, most reliable, and most secure platform to grow your business and improve your efficiency. It's completely web-based, so you can run your entire practice anywhere and from any device with no servers, no downloads, or hidden fees. They even have the most helpful and responsive support team around. Right now, Gray Finch is giving a $500 discount to our listeners. Visit grayfinch.com/Jill Allen to learn more and see why it's one of the fastest growing providers in America. John, I am so excited to have you on Hey Docs. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Jill. I've been looking forward to it. We're going to have a good time.
Yes, we are. One of the ways I love to start off Hey Docs is for my guests. I love it if you could just take a little bit of time and just talk to our listeners a little bit about your background, what you have been doing over the last 25 years, and what we need to know about you before we jump in.
All right. I think it's important to always start with the context that I grew up in a very small town in western Kansas, and my father was the family physician in that town and owned his own practice, and my mother was the office manager. And so much like a lot of kind of conventional small private practice offices, that culture of that and what that means in terms of the relationship with patients and staff and so forth. I grew up all around it and frankly didn't really think of it any differently anywhere else, just because that's the way you think of most everything else. But I knew I didn't want to go into medicine, and because frankly my father worked in it. Part of it was the area we lived in, but there were many Christmases he wasn't there because he had babies he was delivering, and he would be called away, and because he was the doctor, and so if there was something that happened. Consequently, I ended up becoming a nurse's aide and working in the hospital and being around that environment. And so I've always had a real interest in healthcare in general. And so when later I had an opportunity after school to work for a large ophthalmology group in Wichita, Kansas, I jumped on that as a marketing administrator. My professional education and so forth is all in marketing and marketing management, and particularly consumer behavior. That's my passion, I guess you would, is trying to understand, because I believe that if you understand the consumer, then the rest of it is just logistics and working through some details. And most professions, whether they be in the healthcare field or even architects or lawyers, there is a intense training that goes into establishing their capability and credibility to the point that that's the entire focus. And so when people come out and begin to practice their trade, the thought about the consumer's role in that is kind of secondary. They're there, they respect people and so forth, but in every one of them, if you think about it, in every one of them, it's the customer's there to be told what to do, not to be listened to. And so it was an interesting mix when I got into ophthalmology that later turned into optometry, and I became president of a company in Texas called Texas State Optical. And next year will be their 90th year in business. So it's been around a long time.
Wow.
And other than the founders who started it in 36 and sold it in the 60s, I'm the longest serving president of that organization and was there a little over 25 years as president. And the reason I got introduced to this company was through a consumer research study that I had done, and then began working with the franchisees on a contract basis, helping them understand their consumer, developing strategies. And then eventually the franchisees purchased the franchisor and invited me to come on as president. So my introduction to the company was all through consumer research. And we continued all the time that I was there, about every 4 to 5 years, to do different studies in that area. And that really helped to shape my whole understanding of the delivery of eye care, for sure. But I look around and I can see its application into all areas of healthcare. Frankly, it's all areas of business, especially small business. And so I've developed a real affection for helping people see what I see.
Yep.
I write for a trade journal magazine in our industry, optical industry, called Envision. And I've written for it for over 10 years now. And it's a monthly column. And the one that I've got coming out in September, the column that I've got, is all about doing what you say you're going to do. And as it applies to doctors, I mean, in our business, it comes from the very beginning of the time you book the appointment. And certainly we have a large retail aspect to optometry, which is selling glasses. And one of the most frustrating things consumers have is that you told me my glasses would be ready in a week, and it's now been 2 weeks. Where are they? And they look at things like that as broken promises. But that applies to anything, any kind of business. You've got to do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. And thanks for giving us a little background on what you've been doing and and I think that kind of helps lead us into what I want to talk about today, is just really tap into your expertise in what it means to be leaders within your own business and what that looks like from young doctors. And you've worked with a lot of different doctors and young professionals. And I'm wondering if you could just start us off by maybe talking about what are some of those misconceptions that a lot of younger professionals, my listeners, a lot of younger doctors have about success, and how, if we had maybe a little better understanding of that, how that would help them build stronger teams and have stronger practices moving forward in their new and budding practices.
Wow, that's a lot.
That is a lot.
Because there's about 6 things there to talk about. One of the things that I think is a misconception is that, especially a young professional, so I'm going to make some generalizations. Some of them may be fair, some may not be fair. But certainly as a young professional, there's a tendency to want to project capability and expertise and knowledge about what you're entering into. And if you're a young doctor, whether it be in the dental field or in optometry or medicine, if you're a young doctor and you go out and you want to set up your own practice, the most difficult thing to admit at that point is, I have no idea what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And so they tend to just bully their way into it sometimes. Not everybody, but some. And they end up learning this not from the easy way, which would be find a mentor, be coachable, and take advice on that aspect, because it's hard for them to wrap their head around the fact that what they do as the provider is like only about a third of what that patient experience is.
Yes.
And while you better be pretty good at what you do, there's a whole lot more to this than just being the provider. And I think that's underappreciated when they set up a practice. I think they feel that if they've got a good quality education, clinical education, then the rest of it should just fall into place. And it doesn't. It doesn't. So I think that's one thing. Get a mentor and be coachable. And don't be afraid and feel like it is in a, that it makes you more vulnerable to admit you don't know what you're doing. The smartest people do that. And then the wisdom and the expertise, they look around and they say, oh, Dr. Marvin, he's tremendous. He's got a massive practice and so forth. But when Dr. Marvin gets to a point where he's got a massive practice, he's a totally different person than he was when he started that practice. And the difference in that is the time spent learning what he learned and what he now knows. And so the expertise and the capabilities didn't come from school. It came from screwing up a lot and learning from the mistakes and going through more staff than he now realizes he should have gone through. And those are the people you want to sit down and say, tell me what you know, help me avoid those same kind of mistakes. And I think you'll find they're extremely generous in that, and they would be more than happy to help. And so that would be one thing. In terms of people, that's the other thing. It's a team sport. It's not a one-man show and then the rest of them just pick up the pieces. It is fully a team sport. And over the years, of course, we, like most other organizations, had the ability for, if you weren't happy at one of our locations, we had 129 locations. If you weren't happy at one of those locations, you could go on the website and you could end up talking to me on the phone if you ultimately wanted to. My phone number was there. But most people wrote a note of saying, I was really unhappy. I went to this location, so forth. And we would get, as you imagine, over that many locations, you're going to get people that are dissatisfied. But the thing that's impressive is the fact that in all of the years, I don't think we had anybody complain about the clinical capability. All of the dissatisfaction came from customer service. And that is an afterthought, because to acknowledge that my doctor's practice, the practice that I own and operate, comes down to customer service is to accept the fact that I'm really in a retail business.
Yes.
And whether you're an orthopedic surgeon or not, you're dealing with the public. And that's the definition of a retail business.
Yeah.
You're not dealing with other businesses per se. And so certainly in the primary care field, that's all it is. And I think that there's a cringe that occurs to say, I don't want to believe that I'm in a retail business. But in fact, that's what they are. And so customer service becomes critical. And the people that deliver that are your team members, the people that work for you. So that is the asset you have to continue to invest in. Yes. And you'd be much better off overpaying people that are really good at what they do than you would following some budget template that's talked about at some conference somewhere as to the ratio of your labor and employees to your revenues. You know your team members better than any other coach in the game, and you need to coach them and provide that.
I love that insight, and I think it's so relevant and makes so much sense, especially to a lot of doctors that are listening now. I've got these young docs that are out there and they're listening going, okay, you get out of school and you think it is all about, I've just spent 10 years learning how to be a really great orthodontist and I am top of my class and my skills are all that. And one of the things I spend a lot of time talking to my docs about is you can be the best clinician out there, but if you've got a poor team surrounding you, nobody's going to know you're a great clinician because nobody's going to make it to the end of treatment because they don't want to be coming to their practice. Or if they are, what you're going to end up with is a lot of poor reviews. Your practice isn't going to take off the way you want. And so I think as a new doctor, as a new business owner, learning to be able to pour into that team and realizing, as you were saying, it is bigger than you and it is bigger than yourself. And I think that's just so tricky with new business owners because so many times we start off with nobody is going to do this as well as I can. but there's also no way to scale that.
Yeah.
You can try and hold all those balls up in the air, and they may last for a year or two, but there will come a point where you just cannot do it all. And many times I would bet, and I'm sure you've been doing this for a
Hmm.
long time, when you look at practices where you've got a doc that, is really trying to do it all, over time customer service does drop, and those
Oh,
pieces and those people that you need around you, just they cannot also thrive because of that overbearingness of the doctor. And I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit. Maybe you touched on pouring into your team, because I think that's such a hard concept, especially as new business owners, to say, I got to spend money to make money. I've got to pour into this team. And what does that look like when I'm trying to even get my practice off of the ground?
well, I think so. My approach is, and I suggest or recommend that you first, before you ever hire anybody, you sit down and determine what you want this team to look like in terms of the jobs that you want to have in your office. Some people put a great emphasis on cross training, so they want people to be able to do everything, the front desk and the clinician assistants, the dental hygienist, I would imagine in this case. And so some people like that. Some people like the specialization. I want to have these people dedicated to specific jobs. And so without wading into which is better, I think each has their advantages. But first decide what that is going to look like, and then spend the time to write the job description. Now, that seems a little bureaucratic, but it's very important,
Absolutely.
because otherwise, there are two things that'll happen. Otherwise, they won't know what you're expecting of them because they can't read your mind. And you're not going to be in a position to offer the proper compensation for that person. Because once you have I make an analogy about it's like having a recipe for a chocolate cake. If you and I both probably are comfortable enough in a kitchen that we could go in and start to wing it. But, and okay, but we first of all have no idea what this cake's going to cost us because we're going to wing it. And we have no real idea what the outcome's going to be because we're going to wing it. And a lot of people approach hiring people like that. And I want you to do the front desk. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I want you to handle billing. And so first write down this job description. And frankly, today with AI and everything else, there's no excuse. It takes you 30 seconds to at least get a starting point from which you can modify it and so forth. Once you've done that, then you're able to say, what is this type of a person going to cost me? And there's going to be a range. Someone with very little experience is going to get paid $1. Someone with more experience will get paid $5. And so you're able to set the range. And when you start interviewing for people, you've got a specific set of instructions you're going to want to use to train them.
Yep.
And you'll know that based on my experience or the applicant's experience, you're going to pay them a proper amount. You won't be overpaying. And so that's just so important. That fundamental is so critical. Now, I'm a big believer that people will do for love what they'll never do for money. And that means that once you got them hired, you've just started. This is just the basics of the relationship. And so what happens the second week they're there, or the second month they're there, or the second year that they're there, really is going to make the difference in terms of the strength of your team. One of the things that I believe strongly in is that nobody goes to work in any job just for money. They go to work. You've probably heard the old adage about no one buys a 1/4-inch drill bit, but people buy 1/4-inch holes. When you go into when you go into the hardware store and someone says, what do you want? And you say, I need a 1/4-inch drill bit. You're not really wanting a 1/4-inch drill bit. You're wanting the 1/4-inch hole. Mm-hmm. And it's the same way when people go to work every day to get a paycheck. It's why do they want that particular pay? What are they going to do with that paycheck?
Yeah.
And some, in different circumstances, people have different things. And if I'm going to be the leader of the team, I need to know what it is that motivates John. I need to know what motivates Jill. I need to know what motivates Jordan or Joanne or Bill or Fred or whoever. I need to know that so that I can provide them in this job what they're wanting out of this job, in addition to the paycheck, of course. And so I started on early on with my team in the annual review, and actually it starts when they get hired. Tell me about yourself. Where do you want this type of a job to take you? And it's some want promotion, others don't.
Mm-hmm.
But if I learn what really is important to them, then I can address that individually. And every year on a performance review, for instance, I had a young lady who worked for me that was really interested in learning about leadership. And she led a department. Of course, she wants the money that we're paying her, but she had a personal interest in becoming better at leadership. And so we set, as I did with everybody, a personal growth plan of their own skill sets. And I said, then you go do the work and find information that you believe will help you accomplish that, and then bring it back and we'll talk about it. And the company will invest in that. I didn't say we would pay it all.
Yep.
It turned out what she came back with was fairly affordable. And so we did. We just said, then we're going to take care of that for you. And the fact that I was willing to invest in something that was really important to her, she just finished 15 years with the company. And this was her third job ever.
Wow.
And that's what you want, because the team that stays with you over time it just becomes better and better. If for no other reason, they start learning each other really well. So people don't appreciate the expense associated with staff turnover.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge expense, huge expense.
Yes.
And some of it's direct expense. Much of it is indirect expense in terms of inability to really deliver the level of customer satisfaction that everybody wants to deliver. And so I think that investing in and having those conversations with people, you don't have to be everybody's best friend, but you do have to have a personal connection with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that can be done very professionally.
I love your insight on that. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things to learn as a business owner is you are evolving as a leader, and just learning that as you are going along, it isn't just about here's your job description, here's your job duties, now go do it. And I'm only going to speak to you if we've got a problem. But it's really cultivating that culture and that vision of where you want your practice to go, and then what that's going to look like, I believe, for your team to work within that culture and where the vision is going. And again, it can be a tough thing as a new doctor to learn the steps of where this is going and what I need to do to retain those long-term employees. And I think that in our industry right now, that's probably one of the hardest things that we fight is people who are hiring on for a job or people that are hiring on for a profession. And I believe if, as business owners and of doctors, if we don't show within our industry that we have got a path to a profession instead of a position for a job, they are two very different things, and you're going to end up with two very different calibers of employees.
That's right. I'm a student of John Maxwell, and Maxwell talks about leadership as influence. And part of being able to influence people is to be insatiably curious about people, and do so in a way that is curious about what's in their best interest. And the examples he uses is you can walk into a room and you can tell who the leaders are in the room just by who is listening to them. Who are they influencing? And you'll see groups of people, and it has nothing to do with the title or the position. And what I see a lot of times in a private practice is the doctor's not the leader of the group.
Yep.
There's somebody else in that office that's the leader. And it's because there's someone else that's got the most influence. And oftentimes that influence is abdicated by the doctor. Maybe unintentionally, unknowingly, but through the actions and the way that they're interacting, they've abdicated that. I think, and I'm painting with somewhat of a broad brush, but I think the whole healthcare disciplines have a challenge in the fact that the people that are attracted to those professions are typically not people. They typically are science people. And thank goodness we want them to be. But if you're going to be in private practice, then you've got to become a people person.
Yes.
And part of that is becoming curious and committing yourself to continually learning and evolving and becoming better. But you've got to become a people person. Otherwise, just go get a job working for someone who is a people person.
Yeah.
Because they're hiring. There's a lot of them out there that are hiring. But if you want your own business, then that's a part of it. The only way you can deliver, as you pointed out earlier, to scale is that you're going to have a team. And you're going to have to work with people. And all of you together are going to have to work with consumers. And sometimes that's easy. Many times that's not easy.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I love that. And now, a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Are you thinking about opening an orthodontic practice? I know, it's a big decision, but saving 25% on the ADEC equipment you need to get started, that's an easy one. Because ADEC has a special program called Smart Start, designed to help you launch your first practice. You get up to 25% off your ADEC orthodontic equipment and furniture. You also get complimentary services to help you run and grow your business. And my favorite part, access to the Smart Start pricing for 2 whole years after you open your doors. That gives you flexibility to add more chairs as your cash flow grows. It's pretty smart. As an orthodontist, you care about getting all the little details right, and ADEC really got it right with this program. So if starting off with a big savings on ADEC equipment sounds good to you, the ADEC Smart Start is definitely worth a closer look. Just follow the link in the show notes to learn more. Hey docs, let's talk about Smile Suite, because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud Smile Suite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. Smile Suite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at getsmilesuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with Smile Suite, because every smile deserves a suite of excellence. So I'd love it if you would, I'm going to switch gears here just a little bit. And I would love it if you could just talk a little bit about leadership lessons and some of the things. You've been dropping pearls this whole time. As you have worked with doctors and young professionals as they have started to grow in their leadership, I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about what has made them successful as they have started to make that move in leadership, or maybe things, the opposite of that is maybe things that you wish they would have done earlier, or you've seen, here's the success and things that I've seen that have worked well and maybe that have not, as people have moved towards leadership and just really coming into themselves as business leaders.
I think the people that we're talking about that are new to owning a business and are professionally trained and principally are going to be the primary provider within that business, there's a misunderstanding about what leadership is. And the kind of the assumption is that it's, I'm in charge, and so you're going to do what I'm going to tell you to do. And it's a real authoritarian type of view of it. And if I'm not a hard manager, if I'm not tough, then people will take advantage of me. And I think that the challenges and the difficulties that this individual faces are largely born out of insecurities. And it's an acknowledgement that I don't know what I'm doing to myself. Listen, nobody knows yourself better than yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a tendency for people to show up feeling that they're imposters. They're playing a role of a leader when they really have no idea what they're doing. And that creates insecurity. And everybody knows that insecure people are very difficult to have rewarding relationships with. And so the first thing I would say is it's okay to not be perfect at this. Yes. Okay? No one is. Just because you're a clinician or you're in a healthcare role in a highly trained position doesn't mean that you're good at every single thing. No one's good at this. Even there's a ton of people coming out of business school that aren't good at it either. Mm-hmm. And accepting that and then dealing with that once you accept that, then you say, it's okay that I'm not perfect at this. So I'm going to become a student and I'm going to learn everything I possibly can. And going back to what I'd said earlier about you got to be coachable, you got to be teachable. And just like you applied your own discipline to learn the techniques and the skills necessary to be a really good dentist or an orthodontist, then there are skills that are necessary to be a really good leader. And it's okay that you don't have them when you start. What's not okay is to not have them 20 years into trying to run a business, because that won't be productive. There's tons of resources available to learn this. And so I mentioned John Maxwell earlier. I think he is somebody that I would strongly recommend to people, partly because he doesn't take a real academic view of leadership and dissect it and the psychology and so forth. He speaks very practically about it. And I think it's much easier to begin to assume some of those qualities without it's not necessary to know the deep psychology aspects of it. And so I just think that's the first thing, is just to accept the fact that you're not very good at it and you can get good at it, but it's going to take some time. And if you take that attitude, then everybody that's on your team comes to your support, frankly. When you're the first one to admit to the people, listen, I'm working my way through this. We're all going to do this together. They're not going to regret or begrudge you just because you don't have it all buttoned up.
Yeah, I love that. And I think imposter syndrome it's real. And I think we see that all the time. All of us, I can tell you, who Jill Allen was 19 years ago when I started my business, my consulting business. The Jill Allen that I was 19 years ago is a very different Jill Allen than almost 20 years in. Yeah. And I think for most doctors, when it's so easy to get in your head about, we hear the fake it till you make it, but then there's this component of, you got to fake it till you make it. But you've also got to understand that it is okay to ask for help. It is okay to not know everything. And I loved that you said that we've got to give ourselves permission to be able to ask for help. And maybe it's not throwing it out there in the Facebook groups per se. Maybe it is. Sometimes you got to be careful with your crowdsourcing, but gosh, finding a couple mentors, finding a couple people that you trust, finding somebody that's going to maybe be a level above you. I think that opportunity to level up and play up and learn from somebody who's already been there is really going to help you come into yourself, where you do not feel so unsteady in trying to hold that leadership role as you're going along.
It's interesting you said the fake it till you make it. I think that's a terrible phrase, whoever came up with it. Because what it means at the essence of it is you don't be authentic. And people can smell that 10 miles away. I prefer learn it till you earn it.
Oh, I like that
And
one.
and so that acknowledges the fact that I'm just going to be me and I'm going to try to learn as much as I can. And by this journey of constantly learning and continual learning, I will earn whatever level of success that I aspire to. But to fake it till you make it, I think is, first of all, it's left open to all sorts of interpretation. That what does that mean? Do I act tough when if I'm not tough, or do I act rich when I'm not rich? Do I act? No, don't quit acting. Just be.
Yes.
Be authentic.
Yeah, I
And
love
so,
that.
yeah, so that really would. So much of it is these young professionals get so wound up and so stressed out over not being perfect from the day they start. And they do need that permission. Just no one's expecting that. Only
Yeah.
you. And you're
Yeah.
doing this to yourself. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that leads me into my next question, where mindset is everything, I believe, for a young business owner. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, I'll air quote it, the inner game, and what that means and what that looks like to somebody who is really trying to come into themselves and understand what this long game is going to look like.
You just said is not, couldn't be more true in terms of the mindset. I just had this discussion with my 18-year-old grandson. And I do believe this: everybody operates their life out of either fear or faith.
Mm.
And that is the essence of mindset, because you control that in your own. I'm a person of faith, and so I believe the importance of that. But even those of us that have committed to a particular faith, we oftentimes live with a vulnerability to fear. What I mean is that whenever anything happens to you that's unexpected or sudden, whether it be I got fired or I just got a bad diagnosis, we tend to default to fear. And that's all imagined, because we're sitting there imagining all these bad things that can be the result of what just happened. When many times, 6 months down the road, 2 years down the road, we'll look back and say, turned out that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I just couldn't see it at the time. And fear, I believe, is imagined. If you're facing something or dealing with something and you find yourself feeling fearful or anxious, that's a mind game. And you can change that by a decision you make. We get paralyzed in the decisions about our careers, about our lives, about other things. Why? Because we're scared we'll make a bad decision.
Yeah.
And so that comes from a place of fear. On the other hand, Jack Canfield is one of the authors of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And he, in a book called The Success Principles, talks about a friend of his, William Clement Stone, he worked for, actually, referred to himself as an inverse paranoid, meaning that I believe the whole world is out to do me good.
I love that.
And I think that just like anything else, the more discipline you exert to control your thoughts, the easier controlling your thoughts becomes. And so in the beginning, it might be difficult. But every time you catch yourself, think, let me take another look at this. And one of the ways that I, in my own life, do this, as well as the people that I love and care about, if someone will express something that's really negative in terms of this could happen or that could happen, then I'll just simply say, that's one way to think about it. Mm-hmm. Now, another way to think about it might be this. And if you just tell yourself that, yeah, you're right, that may be one way to think about it. But on the other hand, why don't we think about it the opposite way? Mm-hmm. And as you do that, then you become more capable of controlling your thoughts. And if you control your thoughts, you control your life, because that's the only thing you do have control over.
Right.
I don't have control over my spouse, my children, anything, except I've got control over the way I think.
Yeah.
And if I can control that, as well as these young professionals as they're going out, that sense of mindset will position you to be able to be a continual learner. All of the other things in personal growth flow from your ability to control your mind and your thoughts.
Yeah. And I would like to add to that, that I believe that sometimes just even thinking through, like being in control of those thoughts. And yeah, sometimes it can be hard to be, I'm not a Pollyanna thinker. I'm not always going to find the positive in it. But sometimes I believe that being able to just sit under the weight of, okay, I've got this challenge in front of me and I can either be scared or stuck or move forward with it, whatever that may be. My decisions may keep me stuck or keep me scared, or may make me move forward. But I almost feel like sometimes just being able to think through even just that decision making of, okay, what is the absolute worst thing that's going to happen? If this were to play itself out, what's the worst that could happen? And I think a lot of times business owners will get so stuck in their mind where they can't move forward versus, all right, I make this decision. I hire this person. I take this leap of faith and buy this business, or I take on my second location. What's the absolute worst that's going to happen? I'm not successful. It fails, it this, it that. But yet at least taking the time to think through it. And then if you move in that direction and you say, all right, I've already thought about this. This is happening. I can pivot. I can move through it onto the next thing, versus just getting so caught, I think, in that inner struggle where we don't move at all. I think that's just that extra piece, I believe, that goes along with what you were saying right there.
And I believe strongly that you find what you look for. And so if you'll decide, I've got a problem on my plate here, now what am I going to look for? Am I going to look for the way to get over this? Am I going to look for opportunities that this might create? Or am I going to look for all of the bad things that possibly could someday maybe happen? Then you'll find those. On the other hand, I think an important part of this whole process is building time in your day for personal reflection. And a lot of times we jump out of bed, we grab some coffee, and we shower and dress, and we're off and so Tuesday looks like Monday, that looks like Friday, that looks like Thursday. And I would really encourage everyone to get up and allow yourself at least an hour by yourself, and use that to think about your day, think about your thoughts, and think about how the gift of today that's about to unfold in front of you, the opportunities that has, and how you're going to approach people and those same opportunities. And I'm a big believer in a journal. And not that you have to write some diary entry every single day, but you should, when you got time with your best friend, yourself, to think, then you ought to have a piece of paper handy that you could jot down a few things that might come to mind, because our lives are way too important to rely on memory. But I think that's an important exercise just like going to the gym to work your muscles, spending time in reflection helps to develop your mind and helps to develop your mindset.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's probably a great way to finish us off here, because I think when you are thinking about becoming a leader and becoming the support of others, it all comes back to you and how you are choosing to do your life, because it directly affects their lives. And I think that was beautifully said. So as we finish up, I think you and I could have a discussion that goes on for another hour here.
Yeah, I think so too.
If somebody wants to find out, John, a little bit more about what you're doing, or they're like, man, he just seems like someone I need to talk to, what's going to be the best way that they can follow you, that they can reach out to you, maybe find out more about your leadership insights? What's going to be the best way they can get in touch with you?
There's a couple of ways. One is they can find me on LinkedIn and John D Marvin. And if you'll drop me a note there and comment about how we are meeting, give me some context, I'm happy to either, I definitely will reply, but I'm also happy to get on a call or in a meeting. The other thing, I'll give you my email address, which is john@johndmarvin.com. And I'm getting ready to, after 25 plus years at the company I was with as president, I have resigned at the end of June, and I'm in the process of rolling out my next chapter. Part of that, which involves a website, and that's johndmarvin.com. And it's not operational today, but it will be. And I would love to be of value and help with people. And to me, that's the opportunity I feel like I have, is to just share what I've learned. I don't know everything, obviously, but what I do know, I'm willing to share. And I would caution everybody to take it with a grain of salt and learn it for yourself. Learn it till you earn it. So.
I love that. I do a lot of stickers in my business, and I'm like, that's a perfect one. I really like that. Learn it till you earn it. That's great. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be on a Hey Docs. This was just a really great conversation, and a topic that I just don't feel like we talk about enough as an essential tool in running businesses, is just that key part to leadership is really that foundational piece to a really good and successful business. So thank you for the insight.
There, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So the way I like to finish up Hey Docs is to finish us up with a little speed round. Are you ready to start our speed round challenge?
Absolutely.
Okay, here we go. What is one daily habit or ritual that helps you stay productive or balanced?
Prayer.
Ooh, that's a good one. All right. If you could add one unconditional perk to every workplace, what would it be?
Unconditional perk. I'm having a hard time even imagining what that might be listed as a perk. I guess the freedom for people to make their own decisions. I'm a big believer in, I hire you to do a good job for me, and I've got accountability in place, but I'm not going to sit in your office and micromanage you. I think that kind of unconditional authority within a departmental set of guidelines, of course. But
yeah, I love that.
I think that, delegate that authority.
Yeah, that's
good
great.
Question.
Yeah, absolutely. And last question, if you had one piece of advice you wish you had followed earlier in your career, what would that be?
Start.
So good.
Because we constantly are telling ourselves, as soon as I get really good at it, I'm going to start it. Or as soon as I perfect this, I'm going to start. And the reality is, a good friend of mine, his job is to lead as expeditions. There we go. I started to say excavations. His business is leading expeditions to the top of Mount Everest.
Oh, wow.
And if you want to do that, then you go call him up, and then you hire him to be your trainer, and he prepares you. It takes 2 years to prepare someone who's never climbed Mount Everest to climb Mount Everest. And I asked him, I said, what in the world do you do 2 years? How do you train somebody to climb Mount Everest? And he said, there's only one way to learn how to climb mountains. You got to climb mountains. And so that 2 years is spent climbing mountains of a smaller size, incrementally each time getting higher and higher. And so it's the same for us. If you go back to your young self, and I know that I was this perfectionist that had to know everything before I started. And I said, no, the knowing comes from the doing. And so if you wait to do, then you're not going to learn. You're not going to know. So that's my advice to myself. Start.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's a good one. Again, thank you so much for being on Hey Docs.
You're welcome.
And I would love to have you on again. This was a great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate it.